Right, so, and we're streaming on the interwebs. The past few years have been really challenging with COVID, and so we're really glad that you all could be here in person. And then for people online too, I hope you can hear us with our advanced technology streaming. But my name is John Bell. I'm the director of the Ballard Institute and Museum of Puppetry, and my colleague Emily Wicks is standing there at the camera, and my other colleague Matt Sorensen is standing over there with a beautiful blue sweater. And Matt organized this exhibition, and Emily makes everything happen at the Ballard Institute. This is Myths, Legend, and Spectacle, The Puppets of Ralph Fleet. This is Ralph Fleet and his partner and wife, Casey Compton. Ralph and Casey came up from New York City, from West Beth, where they live, although they also have a house in Salem, New York, upstate. And I was thinking this is kind of in a way, a reunion or a return, because one of Ralph's middle names is Storrs. So, and his father was coming from a farming family in Connecticut. So I'm thinking there's some Storrs connection here. This exhibition was put together, as I said, by Matt, who designed it together with Casey and Ralph. I wanted to also thank, I think our interim dean Alain Frogley just walked in, so we're thanking him for coming and showing up. A lot of our student assistants helped with this exhibition. Our graduate assistant, Staff Shear, right here. Kristen Emery, who's not here, but she did all the graphic designs. Saul Ramirez, who's back at the desk with Aditya Awashthi, also back at the desk, and Tom Took is just walked in, and he's drinking something from his water bottle. Yay, welcome. So, thank you all for being here. I was thinking that, well, Ralph Lee's work is really essential for puppetry in the second half of the 20th century. And I feel like I first saw Ralph's work with the early Greenwich Village Halloween parades. I was in a brass band that played, and amazing things would happen when you walk down the streets of the West Village or the East Village and ended up in Washington Square Park. Fantastic things. And then when I worked with Bread and Puppet Theater, the traveling shows at the Meadowee River Theater, which are sort of the majority of the work you'll see here, those shows would travel throughout the Northeast in the summer, and they would come to Glover, Vermont. And then just seeing other shows of Ralph's over the years, it's been really exciting to be part of this work. And it was a real opportunity to, in this project, be able to pay close attention to Ralph's work. So, with no preparation at all, we want to do a short tour. I think that, well, in our little biographical section here, we point out that Ralph grew up in Vermont, in Middlebury, Vermont. His mother taught dance there, and his father was a writer, actually a pretty prolific writer. And he had a set of hand puppets as a kid, right here. Looks very cute here. And but a lot of this work is related, in my mind, to dance and mask performance and puppet performance. Mostly life-size and larger-than-life puppets, sometimes smaller ones, not so many marionettes. But Ralph studied dance, studied mime, studied theater, studied set design, set building, puppet building. And then after he came back from Europe, he went to New York City and got involved in sort of straight theater, uptown theater. He was on a Broadway show almost immediately. and then started making masks and objects and other things for off-Broadway theater and off-Broadway theater. So maybe we'll just slip over here to this. And this is Bart Rocco-Burton, the head of the Puppet Arts program at the University of Connecticut. Hooray! So these are very early masks that were early, 1977. For some of us, it's not that early. But these are masks that Ralph designed for Eric Hawkins. Eric Hawkins was a student of Martha Graham and a real innovator in dance. And you can see here, this is called Plains Daybreak, and the inspirations are Plains Indian designs, although they're not copies of anything. And Ralph, as you can see here, did this very fine work with horsehair and feathers and balsa wood. And I think the idea that I'm realizing is that at this moment in the 60s and 70s and 80s, there's an openness to having masks and puppets in performance. On Broadway, off-Broadway, and off-Broadway especially. There's this saying, well, why not? Let's use puppets, or let's use masks in dance. One of the teachers that Ralph had was Hanya Holm, who was a student of Mari Wigman, who was an inventor of German expressionist dance in the 30s. So she also used a lot of masks. So there's this strong tradition of masks and dance that comes through, and I appreciate sort of learning about that a little bit. Masks and dance. So we're talking about the different people he worked with. Daniel Nagrin, who was important at Downtown Theater. Gene Erdman, who also was the co-founder of theater that we'll talk about now. Theater of the Open Eye. Thank you very much. And Eric Hawkins. So the title of this is Myths, Legends, and Spectacle, and you'll see as you go through here that dramaturgical element, that subject matter is really key. So dance, these are masks that were used in a production of Bertolt Brecht's Galileo at the Repertory Theater of Lincoln Center. When Lincoln Center opened, there was a repertory theater that they thought, you need a repertory theater. That didn't last too long. It only lasted a few years. And then, but one of the productions was Brecht's Galileo. And Brecht, of course, was very interested in masks and puppets and performing objects. And so if you're doing Galileo, you need to have over life-size puppets, you need to have masks. And these are the masks for the scene when the elders in the Roman Catholic Church are having a carnival party, and they're about to come down hard on Galileo for believing in science. So you can see that they have those handles there that you would hold to operate them. These characters are Charivati or Charivati characters from Le Roman de Fauvel, which is a 15th century or 14th century text, a medieval French text that was also performed with masks. Medieval theater, you have to have masks because you're not going to perform. There's a horse who, in a satire in French society, becomes the ruler of all of France. And so all of these kind of carnival characters play in that show. The Waverly Consort, who did this in 1979, was one of the early groups that did early music, which was playing pre-Renaissance music on period instruments. So there was an early music revival in the 60s in Europe, but also in New York. And this is part of it. So again, it's interesting to me, you need masks because you're going to do Le Roman de Fauvel, and that's what they did back in the day. So there are those examples here. And then here's more of these beautiful masks from some Theater of the Open Eye shows. The Theater of the Open Eye, was, I'm trying to find out. Well, the partnership of Gene Erdman and Joseph Campbell, of course, who wrote The Hero with a Thousand Faces and The Masks of God, which really was sort of a way of looking at global global mythology and trying to access it, you know. So the hero's journey was a trope, an idea that he articulated, and that inspired The Lion King and Star Wars specifically. So that, again, mythology and legend as content for work, that shows up in these Gene Erdman directed pieces like Kitamura, which is actually played by the playwright Philip Kan-Gotanda, about sort of a mix between traditional Japanese society and modern-day Japanese-American family. These masks were from The Shining House, which was based on the myth of Pele from Hawaii, where Gene Erdman was born in Hawaii, and a dance piece with these masks. These three are flowers, and you can see from the photograph how this mask covered the face. I love these masks because they're so sort of evocative, and you can see the lines, the flowing lines, and the combination of diaphanous cloth and wire. This mask here, which is done in a really unusual technique with Celastic. Celastic was the plastic impregnated fabric that a lot of us used in the 70s before we were told that it was carcinogenic, which is not what we use anymore. But Ralph ripped the Celastic into little small strips. I've never seen that before, and made this mask for a Theater of the Open Eye production of Moon Mysteries. These are plays by William Butler Yeats, who was inspired by no drama and puppets. So he wrote these plays that you need to have masks for, right? So again and again, Ralph's work is filling a need for theater in the U.S. in the 60s and 70s that has these requirements for let's use masks. And then look, the way Ralph makes these masks is really amazing and inspiring. This is a parrot, a rod puppet parrot from a play called The Parrot, based on a story by Italo Calvino. And Ralph's friends, the way I think about it, because I know people from the Talking Band, people from the Open Theater, which is one of the sort of landmark theater groups in New York that Ralph was a member of as an actor. And I think there's a photo in the top left there of Ralph emoting in a physical theater way for the Open Theater. And this is a rod puppet based on a show. The show is based on a story of a young girl who doesn't do what her father says, but Paul Zimmet, the playwright, was noticing a lot of parrots were arriving in Brooklyn, so put them in the show. Meadowy River Theater, we talk about over on the other side. I just want to note this condor here that made out of sticks, you know, opening up the box that contained that and sort of seeing how Ralph sculpted with sticks. And this was a direct manipulation puppet where like 3 different people would hold the different parts of the puppet and move them together. I just think that's so fantastically beautiful. This mask over here with the horns is from a show called Dracula Savat, which was at Judson Poets Theater off Washington Square, which was the center of 60s and 70s innovation. And then it also was the first performance in Theater for the New City, which was a new downtown theater in New York that opened in 1970. So, and you can see here this Celastic technique with the strips that Ralph perfected. This was directed by Lawrence Kornfeld, who was, for those of us interested in the history of downtown New York theater, was a prolific director there. This is Ronnie Asbell, a great puppeteer from Brooklyn. So I see her nodding, and I know you can tell me when I say the wrong thing. So these puppets are from a Meadowy show called Time Out of Time. It's a play by Constance Congdon, who's a prolific playwright, and there are trolls. There's one troll up here, the bird troll, and there are other trolls on the other side. So maybe we should move to the other side. Come on in. Like we should have a question. And I don't. I'm talking a lot, and Ralph and Casey are here, so I don't know if you can set me right when I say the incorrect thing. So, in the mid '70s, a couple of things happened. You know, so fascinating. Ralph's doing all of this work in New York, in these different areas, and then he gets a job at Bennington College teaching theater, if I'm not wrong. And Casey was a student at that time, and he did a big outdoor show that was very exciting. And one outgrowth of that was that Casey and friends started a theater company named after a nearby river near to Bennington and the New York on the other side, called the Medowee River. So they called it the Medowee River Theater. Also after that, the Theater for the New City wanted to create a Halloween event. And I think Ralph said, if I'm recalling correctly from our conversation yesterday, let's do a parade. Because he had just done a show at Bennington that involved traveling around with these puppets and masks that he had made. And so he got inspired to make a parade. I just want this one anecdote that I really like, thinking of the theater work, was your work with Sam Shepard and Patti Smith with a couple of plays they did. The one was Backbog Beast Bait, and the other was Cowboy Mouth, and you made puppets for those. And you said you made sketches for this this beast, this two-headed pig beast, and brought them to Sam Shepard, and Sam Shepard said, you know, well, I thought I had written that beast out of the play, but looking at these sketches, I'm going to put it back in. So I didn't, you know, Shepard, again, one of these playwrights who's like, yeah, why not? Let's have big puppets. So those puppets came up to Bennington, and Ralph created this, the Halloween parade, the Greenwich Village Halloween parade. Some images of this are in our revolving video document there. And that was a parade that ran through the small streets of Greenwich Village, taking advantage of the architecture of the village, with masked characters coming out on a second floor balcony, a giant skeleton hanging from within the Washington Square arch, a spider puppet crawling down the tower of the library on 7th Avenue. Brilliant magical theater work in the streets of New York for whoever happens by. And those are the shows where, like, I got to be in a band and watch all this amazing stuff happen. And the parade got bigger and just now goes down 7th Avenue and millions of people come. And Ralph stepped back from doing it, although continuing to do Halloween work at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. But he said at the time, you know, in this oral history you did, you know, you said something along the lines of that you hoped that people who saw the parade would go and start their own parade, you know, in their own community. And I thought that was a really strong idea. And actually, that's I've been involved in some of that myself, so I took your advice. So these shows here are all different shows from Medowee River Company. And this one, and again, we're talking about myths and legends. These all connect to different legends and traditions of different people. This is the heroic and pathetic escapades of Karagiozis, and it's about the traditions in Turkey and Greece of Karagos and Karagiozis, who's a trickster character. Trickster characters play a big role in a lot of Ralph's work, I would say, Medowee River work. So these are different characters, masked characters. You can see in the photographs. You can sort of see how they're working outdoors in this sort of larger-than-life, spectacular dramaturgy. This is Omar Phonios, who's a wonderful character right here. I'm going to touch this, but the eyes move. Matt was realizing this independently. This is so very brilliant, in my mind, design that works really well. Over here, up over on this side, are the trolls, the other trolls matching the ones you saw on the first gallery from Time Out of Time. And in non-chronological order, this is, all of these are really interesting. This is called Before Sun and Moon, and it's a play by Christine Haruna Lee based on a Korean folk tale about a scholar who loses his wife and ends up on an island and meets a crane and the crane's chicks, but he finds redemption, that's the word, by learning to fly, and here you see him flying on the back of a crane. This is, I'm going to pull this a little bit, because this is an ingenious mechanism. This is cardboard. You know, I think a lot of puppeteers started to work with cardboard after Scholastic. We found Scholastic. But this is a beautiful corrugated cardboard construction. This show over here is The Dancing Fox, which is based on Middle Eastern traditions of Jews and Arabs, including Sufi tales. And this giant Leviathan fish, as you can see in the video, but also a little bit in this photo, was operated independently, if I'm not wrong, again by like 3 or 4 puppeteers who would operate these parts of it separately. And you know, having our hands on this, I really love the sticks here, the wooden sticks, this cloth, Ralph's use of found objects, these clip light reflectors, and I guess it's these bent twig structures. And the fish here, who the Leviathan sends the fish out to, I forget who they go after, but they're sort of his minions. But these are really beautiful. I'm going to touch it again because holding this rod, you could rotate this, and the tail moves by itself, which is also super awesome and cool. This is these are rod puppets from a show called Stone Monkey Banished, and this is based on the Journey to the West, which is the Chinese novel, which is now the sort of epic source base of the dramaturgy of a lot of Chinese hand puppet theater, shadow puppet theater, Beijing opera performance. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, is a trickster, and this monk here is going to India to bring back Buddhist scrolls to China, and with his friends Pigsy and Sandy, they get into trouble with the gods and with humans, and there's fights and love and saving people. And so it's really a sort of fundamental classical drama source for Chinese culture. But these puppets aren't, you know, like Chinese puppets at all. They're different. That they're Ralph's own constructions. Like with the Karagiosi's play, those shows are usually performed with shadow puppets, but Ralph chose to use these masks and oversized figures. So it's an interesting interpretation. This is a bear from the History of Valentine and Orsin, which is a 15th century French romance about it's like a Shakespeare play, a foundling prince who is discovered in a forest, and he falls in love, and he encounters a wild man who you can see in the video, turns out to be his brother, and this love the way that Ralph's sculpting with the corrugations of the cardboard, so beautiful to use that, in the sculpture. That also happens in some of the other shows. This is Nanabozo, which is a Winnebago story with a grandmother Earth. A later version was done with a more miniature Earth, grandmother Earth. The hero is Nanabozo, who's a hare or a rabbit, performed by the actor wearing ears and a nose, and so they're both playing this trickster character, Nanabozo, who has different adventures. One puppets we don't have here are from Ralph's long-lasting, intensive work in Chiapas in Mexico with Mayan people, a Mayan community whose name I don't remember and have difficulty pronouncing, who invited, through I think an anthropologist who was working there, invited Ralph to come and work with the community and make shows, which he did. And I think that went on for quite a few years, if I'm not wrong. So I think that kind of interaction with like indigenous folks in Chiapas was another very rich way that Ralph was able to connect with different people and different myths and stories. So Grandmother Earth, Nanabozo. These characters over here are masks, and again you can see how Ralph's working with the grain of the corrugated cardboard, and the buttons. The eyes you can see are buttons. When you take a look at all these different puppets, you'll see like, oh, that's a button here, or this is a hat that's made out of metal. I'm going to touch this. Here's this beautiful mechanism for this puppet from Persephone. But this is Caucasian Chalk Circle, another Brecht play done by Medoui. And again, Brecht was so interested in masks and the puppets. So it seems like the right choices here. This is the couple who goes to Azdak, who's trying to figure out whether this young child really belongs to the rich lady or the poor woman who took care of him. And they say, we've been married for 40 years. We're done. Forget about it. And it's a comic scene, if I'm not misunderstanding the whole thing. And then Azdak rules on annulling their marriage, but that also becomes his ruling on the main plot, which is like who's the actual mother of this child. That's probably more than you want to know. But Brecht. And this is a play on a Greek myth about Persephone, the young woman who's kidnapped, brought down to Hades, and it's the origin of the four seasons, coming from that story of Persephone. This was written by Ellen Maddow, who was a writer with a talking band. Something we're not mentioning here, you'll see when you look at the labels, is that Casey Compton is responsible for most of the costumes here. So, yes. So, like these, like the puppet costumes, like those two, I wasn't sure, Sometimes. Puppets are so cooperative. The action here is really great. I've never seen this type of action before, but you'd hold this on your hand like that. There's a strap here, and then play the mechanical operation of the arms and the head with your other fingers. So that's very ingenious, I think, for the puppet world. These are two graces from an adaptation of a Molière and Pierre Corneille play, Psyche, which is itself based on a Greek story. And the playwright Eric N., who's well known in other contexts, worked with Ralph on this. And also you worked with this amazing choreographer Yoshiko Chuma for the choreography of this play, which is totally fascinating to me. So it's Greek gods and goddesses, and these are two attendants to Venus here. So they're very beautiful. This is a show from the Swampy Cree people called Wichikapachi, and this is Wichikapachi and Crow. Wichikapachi goes walking, play poems from the Swampy Cree people, translated by Howard Norman, and Wichikapachi. When Ralph says it, it rolls off his tongue. Wichikapachi. This is Wichikapachi. He's a trickster, and again, like, I really love this design with the twigs again. And this is, you must be up in Salem, you must be near a dairy farm, because this is a milking thing you put on the udder of the cow. So he's reusing that. And then this is the crow, again, made from twigs and metal. Here, I'm going to touch this. This does this. I thought it moves, but yeah, a little bit it moves. So, and then you can see the detail of the way the eyes are constructed. Just kind of beautiful work. So that's a quick run through of or an introduction to this work. I think it's like 15 different Meadowy productions represented here, and it's not everything. There's so many wonderful shows that aren't even represented here, so there's more wealth. Another exhibit is called for. So I think that's the end of our tour, and I don't know if anyone, I don't know if you want to say anything, or you don't have to. That's fine. I don't know if Matt has any thoughts as the designer of the exhibit, or Emily. Okay.
I think that what we have accomplished with Ralph and Casey's help is remarkable, and I feel fortunate to be working here on this kind of material, and what this represents is incredible, like lifetime of work and dozens of other people's work, and this collaborative spirit, and watching interviews with Ralph and his community spirit and his desire for everyone to create and everyone to join together is extremely inspirational to me specifically, and I just loved working on this, and I loved getting to meet Ralph and Casey, so thank you very much.
It's been a true joy for us to reflect on the past and have a little conversation between all kinds of characters and creatures from many different wonderful theatrical adventures. So it's been a real treasure for us. And if anybody has specific questions, come and ask. I'd be happy to talk to you
Beautifully
about
installed. I think it's
Yes.
beautiful.
Bravo.
The way it was
It's
set
a
up.
village.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, even
Two things. One, we have a book to sign in on, a sign-in book right in the theater over there, and that also is where we have an overabundance of food that we'd like you to help to have something to eat. Please feel welcome to do that. We'd love that if you'd hang out and talk with us, talk with Casey and Ralph. Good. Thank you so much.